All right, everybody, welcome to BO Boys for Monday, June 5th. Fuck it, it's a raw feed. We're doing it live. I'm Clayton.
Yeah, I'm Pat. Clayton, huge weekend at the box office this weekend. We had Spider-Man swung into the top spot and may or may not have proved me wrong. We're going to find out about that. We'll find out about that. So before we get into it, we just want to welcome new listeners. As always, the BO Boys is blowing up. May was the biggest month in the history of the show. June's going to be bigger. And so we want to welcome the Stoolies who are now joining us. We're definitely got an influx of listeners from the Barstool Sports Network, of course. We just got a big name drop from a huge show, a
Yep.
huge podcast, the Kirk Menahan show. Name drop the BO Boys just this weekend. Let's give a quick timeline on this. We want to thank Wanna BO Boy Zach, who wrote to us to inform this about this happening on Sunday morning. Zach wrote to us to let us know that this happened, and it quickly blew up because the Kirk Menahan show then tweeted out a video excerpt from their latest episode in which the host Kirk basically said it is his lifelong dream to be a guest on the BO Boys, and we're working on it. We've got the lawyers working on it right now to see if we can make that happen for Kirk. And it's blowing up. His Minifans, as he called them, are definitely flocking to the show. We love, of course, anytime a show gives a copyrightable name to their fan base.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's the way everyone should do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so welcome, Stoolies. Welcome, Minifans. Welcome to the BO Boys. You're about to be part of history.
And you know what? I'm happy for all of them. I'm happy for them to be able to discover this great show and get to know all this great information about the box office. So they are informed. So they can go by the water cooler on Monday. And
by the bar.
Yep. They can talk about box office with authority.
Yes. This is huge. The thing to keep in mind for all the Minifans and for all the Stoolies here, movies, it's like sports. The box office is like the score in a sports game. The actors are like the players in a sports game. So it'll take a little bit to get caught up to speed, but you will be able to catch on.
Absolutely.
I have faith in these Stoolies, in these Minifans. They will be able to catch on. So, Clayton, why don't we get into it?
Yes.
Why don't you give us a rundown, which is, again, it's like the box scores in a sports game is what we're about to do. Give us the rundown, the plow for the weekend at the box office of Friday, June 2nd.
All right. Number 1, Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse, Part 1, $120.5 million in its first weekend. Number 2, The Little Mermaid made $40.6 million, down 58%, no theater change. It's at $186.2 million in its second frame. Number 3, another newbie, The Boogeyman, made $12.3 million in its first frame. Number 4, and we called this, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 made $10.2 million, down 51%. It lost 360 theaters. It's at $322.7 million in its fifth frame. Number 5, Fast X made $9.2 million, down 60%, lost 621 theaters, and is at $128.4 million in its third weekend. Let's go for 10 here. I'm feeling good about this. Number 6, the Super Mario Brothers movie made $3.3 million, down 48%, hemorrhaging theaters. It lost 804. It is at $566.2 million in its ninth weekend.
Wow.
Here's another leapfrog. Number 7, About My Father, made $2.1 million, down 51%. No theater change. It made $8.8 million in its second weekend altogether. Cume. Number 8, The Machine, $1.7 million, down 65%. It's at $8.7 million in its second weekend. So we got to battle the comedians here.
Yes, yes.
Number 9, You Hurt My Feelings, made $769,000, down 45%. It has no theater change. It's at $3 million in its second weekend. And number 10, Kandahar, made $765,000, down 67%. Oh, hemorrhaging theaters, 368 lost, is at $4.2 million in its second weekend. And that's your top 10.
That's a top 10. I mean, this is going to be a Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse heavy show, but let's get into a few of these other stories here. I actually want to talk about this tale of two comedians
Okay.
at 7 and 8. About My Father leapfrogged the Machine. Sebastian Maniscalco leapfrogged Bert Kreischer. And I think what we saw here was Sebastian Maniscalco has the older audience. You know, he's the book club of comedians.
Yeah.
At least amongst here. You know, he's not quite Milton Berle age, but he's an older comedian. He's got an older audience. And that older audience doesn't rush out on opening weekend. You know, they're okay with waiting to see this movie. And you could see that right here in the holds. About My Father only dropped 51%. The Machine dropped 65%. You know, the Machine fans, they were going out opening weekend. They were rushing to it. And once that opening weekend was over, there is no other audience for this Bert Kreischer. He is not going to be the new Zach Galifianakis. Let's just say that right now.
No, but here's what we can say, though.
Okay.
Is that The Machine was a movie in theaters.
Yes.
And therefore, it is now a movie that will find a life on streaming because it was certified as a real movie. If The Machine would have dropped on Netflix, it would make no cultural impact whatsoever. But it went to theaters. It made $8.7 million, which is not great, but it still was out there. People saw posters. They saw ads in theaters. When this drops on streaming, people will watch it.
Yes. I mean, look at who has movies in theaters this year amongst comedians. Kevin Hart puts his movie straight to streaming. Kevin Hart is a streamo star, and Bert Kreischer is a theatrical movie, not star, but his movies go to movie theaters. Kevin Hart's movies do not go to movie theaters. So score that for Bert Kreischer. I mean, it's a sad day to see that be what's going on, to see that Bert Kreischer movies go to theaters and Kevin Hart he's given up and is relegated to streaming, but that is what has happened. Bert Kreischer puts his movies in movie theaters.
And then, listen, About My Father.
Okay.
The guy got De Niro to play his dad.
Oh, dream come true.
It's a dream come true. I mean, when the B.O. Boys movie gets made,
yes,
who's going to play your dad, Pat?
Who's going to play my dad? I mean, I would go for, you know, he doesn't act very much, but when he does, he's great. I would say Scorsese. I would get Scorsese to do a rare acting role.
De Niro, but you're going Scorsese.
Yeah, I'm going bigger. But listen, Sebastian Maniscalco, this is huge for him. It's a dream come true. You know, he got De Niro to play his dad in a movie. It's a dream come true. It's like if Kirk Menahan gets to guest on the B.O. Boys, it'll be a dream come true for him. And that is what happened with Sebastian Maniscalco. He got De Niro to play his dad in a movie that was released in theaters. So it's a win. These movies just coming out is a win. The thing is, neither of these movies are going to turn these comedians into movie stars. This is not Jim Carrey 1994 becoming a movie star with Ace Ventura, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber. That's not what The Machine or About My Father are going to do for these comedians. But you know what? It'll give them a nice little boost for their theatrical ticket sales. It'll probably get them some more Instagram followers, help their podcasts, which is all good. You know, the downstream revenues of comedians, that's what these movies are going to help.
And it'll sell tickets to their live shows.
Yes, and merch. The Machine movie will sell merch for Bert Kreischer. I hope that these movie theaters get a cut of that Machine merch. That's where the money is. The money isn't just on the ticket sales. The money would have been if these Regals and these AMCs would have been able to sell some shirtless Bert Kreischer plushies, and some Machine movie poster T-shirts.
Well, you
That's
don't
where
even
the
have to
money
make
is with.
shirts. You sell a non-shirt. You sell shirtlessness to them. It's a bag with no shirt in it. That's the Bert Kreischer Machine shirt. It's
Oh, that's
perfect.
brilliant.
It's air. They would
Right,
sell air.
right. And the Bert Kreischer fans who are going to show up drunk, which is great.
Great.
Welcome Stoolies. We totally endorse people showing up drunk to movie theaters. And these Bert Kreischer fans would have shown up drunk to the theater, bought a $30 bag of air, which
Mm-hmm.
is sold as a Bert Kreischer non-t-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
And that would have been where Regal and AMC could have made a lot of money on the Machine. Because
Well,
comedians nowadays, it's all about merch.
and we got to get to Spider-Man Across the
We
Spiderverse,
gotta.
right?
Got it. Huge
But
movie, biggest movie in weeks.
the thing with the Machine is we got to see those concession numbers.
Yes.
We got to
Yes.
see the concession numbers. They
Yes.
have to be in. The numbers has to get on this.
Yes. Yes.
They have to get on this to show us the concession numbers here, because that is an important part of keeping the lights on in the theaters.
Yep.
And I bet you the Machine made more money in concessions than the Boogeyman or Little Mermaid.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We need to see the volume of nacho cheese that the Machine sold in movie theaters these last 2 weekends, because 8 million in ticket sales, fine. But show me the VAT numbers of nacho cheese that Bert Kreischer sold at AMC's. That is where we could judge this movie. I bet you that nacho cheese number is off the charts.
Now, speaking of eating.
Yes.
And I
always.
know the reason why you wanted to start with the Tale of Two Comedians is because you were trying to not eat crow here. Okay.
Well, before we eat crow, though, we should talk about this.
We eat crow, not we. There's no crow eating by me. There's crow eating by you.
We're a team, so crow gets shared.
Well,
but
if you can't finish your crow, I'll finish it, I guess.
Before we get into Spider-Man,
where are you going
let's just
here?
move up logically up the list here.
Logically, that the stuff you were right about, that's the logical. Yeah, okay.
Spider-Man last. We got plenty of time for Spider-Man. This episode is going to be jam-packed. Yeah. Let's go to the 4 and 5 spots in this top 10. We both called it.
Yes.
Guardians of the Galaxy, which has been out for 5 weeks, jumped ahead in the rankings of Fast X, which has only been out in its 3rd weekend. I mean, Fast X dropped 60% in its 3rd weekend.
It's in trouble.
It is totally fair to say, and listen, this is a movie that it's a worldwide play.
Mm-hmm.
And I think worldwide it's, at 500 million, it could do 700 million. It's going to make a lot worldwide, but domestically, it's at 128. It made 9 million this past weekend. We're looking at a movie that's going to make 150 or less domestically. That is rough.
This feels to me like, I mean, the numbers are similar to, say, like a latter day Michael Bay Transformers movie, right? Where the domestic numbers just cratered.
Yes. This feels like Fast X / The Last Night.
Yeah.
This is the last night of the series, but the problem is Vin Diesel has promised 2 more movies. And this week we kind of found out through The Rock's Instagram what he meant by that, because everyone knows The Rock cameoed in Fast X, and everyone thought that meant he will be in the next Fast and Furious proper movie. What it really means is there's apparently going to be another Hobbs spinoff, which is going to be Fast 10.5, and Vin Diesel, Dom Toretto will not be in that movie, and then there will be a Fast 11.0. This feels like a mess. 2 more Fast movies feels like total death here, coming off of this domestic number. This is all a bad idea. You got to do 1 more movie and then get out,
and be together
for 10 years. Yeah,
that's the thing about ego. And that's the thing
Mhm.
about these guys like Vin Diesel and The Rock, who've had
Mhm.
massive success,
Right.
success beyond wildest dreams, right? The thing that drives people to reach that level and to ignore all the naysayers is the same stuff that destroys them on the way down because
Mhm.
they can't listen to anybody saying, "Hey guys, just squash this beef and be in a movie together." All
Right.
right?
Right.
Because that would at least level this off, maybe get a bump from Fast X. It would need to get a bump from Fast X. I mean, I couldn't see it going lower, right?
If
But
it's not, if the next Fast and Furious movie is not promoted as the final one, it absolutely will do worse than Fast X. This is a franchise in decline. The only thing that could save the next Fast movie is the promise that it is the
that it's
finale,
over. Yeah.
that it's
Yeah.
over.
Promise us it's over.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, anything short of that, a Hobbs spinoff, a 10.5, a Fast and Furious movie that is the middle of a final trilogy, any version of that will bomb. This
Mhm.
franchise domestically is done. People have had their fill of it. And listen, we liked the movie a lot. We
It's
both had
fun.
a great time.
Momoa was I liked Momoa a lot, and I was low on him going in, and I was
Yeah.
surprised at how much I enjoyed that performance.
Yeah. But the people have moved on in North America from this series, and
Mhm.
they cannot squeeze 2 more movies out of this. And yeah, The Rock and Vin Diesel have to squash this beef. They have to put their egos aside. I mean, you
Mhm.
look at the BO Boys.
Yep.
We are a giant show.
Yeah.
And take Scott Mendelson, biggest
Yep.
box office analyst of a generation. But we all have big egos. But we
Yep.
get on the show together and we do this together because we know that's where the money is. Jeff Bach, Exhibitor Relations Co. Huge box office Twitter account. Big
Huge
ego on
ego.
that guy.
Ego,
Huge ego on
Jesus.
that guy, but he comes on the show and we know that that is where the money is. You look at Kirk Minahan,
Yep.
huge, huge show.
Yep.
Years. Guy's been everywhere in radio, on podcasting, and he wants to come on the BO Boys. Big ego. I mean, that guy's got a huge ego, but
But
he wants to come on the show because he knows that is where the money is. Vin Diesel
but
and The
earned.
Rock,
The ego's earned.
the ego's earned, sure. And The Rock's ego's earned. Vin Diesel's ego's earned.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
they got to put those egos aside and do one more of
Exactly.
these movies and then kill this franchise.
And guys, put it aside for one movie, and if that movie hits, your ego can inflate even bigger.
Yes. Yes.
So think
Exactly.
about that. You might have to, you know, deflate a bit.
Right.
But then once that thing hits, and if it hits, man, you can just be a guy that nobody can even look in your eyes.
Exactly.
You could be the biggest diva of all divas if you want to be.
Exactly.
And
But
they both want to be divas.
I mean this franchise, this Fast franchise is just in free fall. I mean, listen, I think you could look in the next few weeks that the Super Mario Brothers movie could conceivably finish ahead in the rankings in the next few weeks ahead of Fast. I mean, that is as
Oh,
wild as that is, Mario's been out for 9 weeks. I think those holds on Mario are going to somehow be better than Fast going forward. I mean,
I
Fast
mean,
will be out of theaters, I think, in the next month.
and speaking of, I mean, Transformers, Beast Wars is coming, and then you've got the Flash. I mean, this thing's going to get pushed down, pushed down, pushed down.
Yeah, yeah, and
Even if those
Fast need
movies don't overperform or do all that well, I mean, Fast is done. It's out of the collective memory at this point.
yes, yes. All right, so we gotta get to this. We gotta get to this new movie, Clayton, and that, of course, is The Boogeyman at number
Yeah.
3.
Okay. Yeah. Here we
Boogeyman
go.
came in number 3, made $12.3 million dollars. This Chris Messina starer, this horror movie sort of based on a Stephen King story or tweet.
It's
I
not.
don't
It's
I
not
don't
sorta. I think it could be a tweet. It could be a tweet.
Right. Yeah, I don't know what the material was that Stephen King wrote. If it was, if it was just like a bill that he paid that got adapted into a movie, but it was somehow Stephen King related. It's the
Well, he wrote it on
boogeyman.
the back of a check for a diner as a tip.
Yes, yes, and
What's a
that
short story
so
of the
that
boogeyman?
waitress cashed in
Mhm.
to the tune of $12.3 million opening weekend. Listen, we kind of nailed this, right? We said this was on the low end of the tracking. I
Mhm.
think we each had it around 11 to 12 million. It came in at that. This is not going to be the black phone of this summer. It's just not.
No, in PG-13, the thing with this movie too is that the honest truth is Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse really ate its lunch because
Mhm.
this demo, the Hispanic demo
Mhm.
over-indexed with Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and they usually over-index on horror movies,
Okay.
and they went to see Spider-Man. I mean, that's part of it, but
Right.
also I think the demo that was the other demo that was you're looking for these horror movies, these, the youngsters,
The teens. Yeah.
the teens, the tweens,
Yeah.
they went to Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And I
Mhm.
think 20th Century, listen, their expectations were like 15, which this still did well. I mean, it didn't reach the height of the heights, but I don't think they expected Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse to be as strong as it was.
No, nobody did.
Yeah.
Nobody did. Nobody
Uh,
could have.
not
Nobody
nobody.
did.
Not nobody.
So I think, like, Disney did not think Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse would come anywhere near the number it did because nobody did, and nobody could be wrong to
Well, why you
not
talk
think
about
that.
Disney? Because Disney didn't do shit when it comes to this movie. This is not a Disney product, my friend.
Or the Boogeyman. Boogeyman is
Oh,
a
oh, oh,
Disney 20th century release.
I thought you were I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about Spider-Man.
No, 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 no,
Okay,
no. I
okay,
know
okay.
Spider-Man is Sony because Sony owns the rights to the Spider-Man properties, even though Disney owns the rights to all other Marvel properties. Of course, we know that we're BO boys.
Yeah.
No, Disney slash 20th Century released the Boogeyman, and I think that it just shows again that Disney is not going to be a great studio at releasing this. I mean, right now Disney's not great at releasing anything. I
No,
mean,
no,
we're
no.
about to see Elemental and Indy 5 back to back, and
Ooh.
it's going to be a rough summer for
Oofa.
Disney,
Oofa.
but this is the type of movie that if the merger had never happened and 20th Century was its own studio and it's releasing something like The Boogeyman, this movie probably does a little better because 20th Century as a non-Disney entity probably knows how to market this movie better than Disney is doing. Disney had Barbarian, which way
Yeah.
overperformed because it was a great movie, but Disney is not a great studio to release a horror movie. They're just not.
And I also don't think this is a great movie. I mean,
No,
people
no.
are not saying, I mean, Barbarian was a great movie. And I think that makes a huge difference because I mean that opened low and then it had legs. This I do not think will have legs. The Boogeyman, we haven't seen the Boogeyman. They haven't used him in any of the marketing, and so we don't know if Boogeyman has legs. We don't
Right.
know if
Well,
the
he's
actual character.
invisible.
I mean, who knows? We don't know.
Yeah.
Invisible to us marketing wise, but you might see the Boogeyman in the movie. I hope you see the Boogeyman in the movie.
Right.
The Boogeyman may or may not have legs, but this movie certainly doesn't have legs. I can definitively say the Boogeyman
Yeah.
movie has no legs.
No. No.
But the
Um,
Boogeyman itself, it could have 8 legs. I don't know.
we don't know. We just don't know. Yeah, it's a problem to have invisible characters. And listen, the Invisible Man for Universal did great as the last pre-COVID movie, but it is rough having invisible characters because you just cannot put
Well,
them in stunt marketing the way you did with the Smile people and other, Ghostface, the way Scream puts Ghostface around
yeah.
cities as promotion. It's tough to do that with an invisible character, and we saw that with the Boogeyman.
Well, Pat, why are you assuming the Boogeyman is invisible? The
I
Boogeyman
mean,
is not in itself invisible. Like as a concept, were you taught that the Boogeyman is an invisible thing?
invisible and always around you at all times. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. All right. So that's a Boogeyman. Okay. We gotta talk now about this huge movie that, of course, is aimed at at children, but also at adults who have nostalgia. And it is it's a version of a movie we've seen before, but in a totally different format than it had previously appeared before. Of course, I am talking about The Little Mermaid, which finished number 2 at the box office this weekend. 58% drop at $40 million. So, Clayton, let's talk about this extensively, do you think, or quickly? I'm
Quick.
fine with extensively. What are you
Yeah,
leaning
yeah, yeah.
towards?
I'd say quickly. I think I said this was going to drop like 61, or I thought it would drop higher, but
Yes.
58 is not spectacular hold, but it wasn't in the 60s.
No,
I
I think
do
that's a
think,
pretty good hold. I think
yeah,
this movie making 40 million the second week, I think people like this movie fine. I think it's fine.
yes. I will say when Disney looks back at their terrible year, they
Mhm.
will look at The Little Mermaid and say, that wasn't a disaster.
Oh, definitely not. Definitely not. I mean, here's the thing. The good times for Disney for this summer are officially over.
Yes.
Guardians of the Galaxy ended up doing great because it was a well-liked movie and the holds were awesome. Little
Hmm.
Mermaid, I think there was a lot of negative mojo going into this movie, and it opened well and the hold was fine and this movie will do, but that's it. Guardians and
Yeah.
Mermaid are the good stuff for Disney. Now it's time for them to deal with Elementals and Indy 5 in the
And
next few
then
weeks.
even, down the pike, Marvels,
Oh god.
Marvels, all that stuff. But just to give some credence to the Guardians stuff, the volume 3 is at 322. The first Guardians topped out domestically 333, right? So it's
Mhm.
gonna probably beat that. It's already over the worldwide gross of the first one, which is great. It's not going to reach the heights of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, but that was in the thick of Marvel MCU
Mhm.
Mania 2017. The second one is going to be the high watermark for this. So it's still close enough, though. 389 domestic for Guardians Volume 2. This movie sustained itself by being good.
Yes.
But
Yes.
it proves how much Marvel and the MCU have fallen out of favor, that people had to sleep on this movie, had to hear from other people how good it was. They did not get the benefit of the doubt
No. No.
because of all the terrible Marvel movies that have come out in the past few years. This franchise that was nothing but beloved, with this cast that everybody loved, with this director that pretty much everybody loved, except for a little
Mhm.
blip there where he was fired. The fact that this movie had to be a word of mouth hit shows that Marvel and Disney are in trouble.
Trouble. Big
Trouble.
trouble. Big trouble. Listen, this movie, Guardians
Nothing
3,
but trouble. Nothing but trouble.
had to overcome the hate for Quantumania.
Yeah.
That is the story of that opening weekend of Guardians, but because people love the movie, the holds have been spectacular. All right, Colleen, let's talk about Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And I'm going to say it. I predicted this movie would make $91 million, and
Yes.
it made $120 million in its opening weekend. So, Clayton, I was slightly low on this movie.
Yes. Well, here's what I'll say. That number in itself, the 91, is not what I had an issue with here. It's the fact that you
Okay.
thought there'd be no chance that this would go over 100. That's more of a egregious thing, right? Now, I will say here,
Hmm.
I could sit here and I could be like, I nailed this on Saturday. On Saturday, it was 113. And
That
that
was
was
your
the number I
prediction.
had. That
Yeah.
was my prediction. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter what happens on Saturday, okay? Saturday's for amateurs, all right? You
Hmm.
got to be able to nail it on Sunday. Sunday is the day.
Right.
And Sunday's total was 120. Now, am I upset that I was wrong? No, because I'm never upset when it goes higher. I'm upset when it
Oh,
goes lower, but I'm not upset when it goes higher.
right.
So,
Right.
doesn't matter I nailed it on Saturday. What matters is this movie overperformed to such an extreme level that it is really a paradigm shift. All right.
Mm-hmm.
It's the
Mm-hmm.
beginning of a paradigm shift because what we're seeing and what we've been talking about, people think that, listen, we were just talking about these other movies, blah, 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 and there's no reason for it. The reason we're talking about those movies first is because we're seeing a sea change here. Marvel, MCU falling out of favor. Okay. Because this Spider-Man movie is Sony. If you take anything, new listeners, if you take anything from this episode, is
Mm-hmm.
that Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse is a Sony movie. Marvel and Disney do not get a win on this. Okay? This
The
is
MCU
Sony's
doesn't
win.
get a win, you're
No,
saying.
MCU doesn't get a win.
Okay.
Right? This is Sony.
Mm-hmm.
Sony was smart enough to lock down a perennial star character, a refillable concept character that is Spider-Man. Okay? They were smart about that. And what they're doing with this whole thing is amazing. But
Mm-hmm.
just to summarize, we also talked about Fast X. The Fast movies, those perennial summer tent poles, deflating,
Mm-hmm.
losing money.
Yes.
We mentioned Elementals, Pixar, straight to Disney Plus. Not a premium brand. Not a
Right.
premium brand.
Right.
They are straight to streaming movies now, okay?
Right. Pixar
Those
used
were
to
always
be
hits.
a slam doink. Pixar
Yes.
used to be, if a Pixar movie was coming out, it would be no worse than the third biggest movie of the summer. Honestly, it would usually be the first or second biggest movie of a summer. This is the
Mhm.
studio used to give us Incredibles and Finding Nemos and Finding Dory's and Toy Stories, Cars movies. Now, Pixar, I mean, listen, we all know Elementals is going to be a giant disaster in a couple of weeks. Pixar is done. Fast
Mhm.
is done. Indy 5 is about to be a funeral procession for what used to be a slam doink, gigantic summer movie franchise. And
And
Sony Spider-Man, I mean, this is it. This is the new thing.
when you look at the chart, Super Mario Brothers still on this chart, okay?
Oh,
Video games.
yep,
Video games are now a hot IP. They finally cracked it. They cracked the
yep,
code. You're going to see
yep,
so many video game movies.
yep.
Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, adult animation,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
A superhero movie that's animated is being comped and talked about in the same breath as the live action Spider-Man movies. Okay?
I-
In the same conversation. What are you going to listen? Or you eat your crow first and then
Well,
say what you're going
I'm
to say.
about here. I'm about to say something here. I was wrong
Love it.
because I said this would open to 90. It definitely wouldn't open to 100. And my reasoning that I gave on our preview episode this past Friday was that the mainstream adult audiences would not come to an animated superhero movie at the level they would a live action superhero movie because there's still going to be that barrier for
Mhm.
adults to see this type of movie animated. Obviously there's gigantic animated movies. We just had Super
Mhm.
Mario, so it's not like I'm saying animated movies cannot be gigantic because of course they have.
Yeah,
Pixar movies have made, $150 million openings since the beginning of time, and we just had Super
absolutely.
Mario Brothers. But what I thought was that adults would have a hard time hitting that level of box office for this type of animated movie. And I think what we showed this weekend is that, again, the new adult, the new generation of adult is a child. And that's fine, which is great. It's great for the
Now
box
you're
office.
going against.
I'm
You're
just saying
going.
that is why I ended up being low
You're
on
attacking
this
the
movie.
audience. Okay,
Is
you're
that
attacking the
the
audience.
new adults as a child? I'm not attacking them. I am saying I now understand what the audience is. And that's
But Pat,
great. That's great
w-
because it equaled big box office dollars. So it's great. But I just did not understand previous to this weekend that adults wanted their formerly live action movies to actually be cartoons,
So
and they
you
do.
think this movie is more childish than seeing an MCU movie? That this
I
is a more
think
childish act than seeing grown men dress in costumes.
well, here's an interesting thing. If we look at this as a sea change, which it is, the
Okay. Yeah.
Spider-Man movie opening to 120, it's basically opening to the level of a real live action superhero movie. Because previous to this,
Which is for
that first,
adults in your mind.
well, previous to this, animated superhero movies were always looked at as kind of B-level trash. It was your animated Batman movie. What was that? The Mask of the
Mask of the
Phantasm.
Phantasm. Yeah.
Types of things that would open to like $2 million in limited
Teen Titans
release.
Go.
Teen Titans Go, or your things that were like animated Star Wars movie. Remember when they did the Clone Wars movie
Yeah.
and they put that in theaters? And of course, no one went to see it because they're like, Star Wars is a live action franchise. This is some animated thing. We're not going to go see, even though that came out at the height of the prequels. What I'm saying is that people always look down at these animated versions of previously live action franchises. And now this movie has cracked that barrier where it doesn't seem to audiences to be a downgrade. And I think
No.
if that is a sea change, here's who has to be worried about that. Are these actors who previously the surest paycheck in Hollywood for an actor who otherwise couldn't draw a fly to a movie theater is to get paid to put on a superhero outfit?
Hmm.
We're talking your Chrissy Hemmys.
Chrissy Hemme.
And now if Thor can be a cartoon and you don't have to pay Chrissy Hemme to get into the Thor cape, and all you have to do is animate him and get a Jake Johnson to do the voice. That is, I think, a bad sea change for these young actors because that was where they could make their big bones. That's where they could make their big paychecks, was being in these superhero movies that did not need them to be draws.
So here's the thing about that. Okay. This is a sea change, but the sea changes slowly, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
here's the thing with this movie. It is a confluence of so many things. That is why it's big. It's not just big because it's a cartoon superhero movie, right? If you made a Captain America cartoon and put it out next year, it would do bupkis. Nobody cares.
Right.
Okay.
Well, also
The
because it would be MCU and the MCU is dying.
Absolutely. So, but here's the thing. This film, the first film, Oscar winning for
Right.
best animated movie. Okay. The animation style that they used in that was interesting, groundbreaking. And for this movie, they decided to push it even further. They
Mm-hmm.
decided to push it and innovate and make it a whole new level of animation. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
These
Mm-hmm.
are people who decided to create a universe and really give it love. They're not overtaxed VFX people who had to work on a She-Hulk show that nobody watched
Right.
instead of making Quantum Mania and the quantum realm look like anything other than a green screen world. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
these VFX artists, it's like they're making them do a She-Hulk TV show. That's like getting a surgeon to pop your pimple. Okay.
Right.
That's
Right.
how messed up MCU is.
Right.
The thing about this movie is that the original one, even though it opened low, became a big streaming hit and a big word of mouth hit to the point where it built up a fan base of people who
Mm-hmm.
would watch that movie over and over and over and over again and were salivating about this film. Okay.
Yep.
It's pushing the limits of animation, right? It's got a creative team that animation wise people love. Okay. The Chris Lord and is it just Lord? It's not
I
Miller, right? It's
I
just
think it's
Lord.
Lord and Miller producing. Like I
Okay.
don't think that they're writing, but yes, they're definitely putting these teams together. And yeah, Lord and Miller, they know how to put artistic teams together. I want to read a quick email here that we got from a
Do it.
wannabe oh boy Marcus,
Hey,
who just
Marcus.
always comes with the heat here. He's always throwing the heat
Well, he's
when
our
it comes.
anime correspondent. He knows
Yes.
all about adult animation. So this is
Yes.
from the mouth of somebody who knows what they're talking about, an
Yes.
expert.
And he says this about Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse's really impressive box office performance this weekend. He says, I think one contributing factor to the movie's success could be that the character of Miles Morales has been promoted really effectively across different media, specifically in video games. The game
Mhm.
Spider-Man: Miles Morales was released 2.5 years ago, just as PlayStation 5 was coming out. It was a blockbuster release, as it was the major new game available for the console launch. It went on to sell 6.5 million copies and become the third best-selling game published by Sony in the US since
Holy moly.
1995. Spider-Man will also be heavily featured co-star in the upcoming game Spider-Man 2, which is one of the most anticipated game releases of the year, coming out this fall. So
It's
that
the most
is,
anticipated movie of the fall. I mean, a video
yes,
game of the fall. That's huge.
that's huge. So that is thank you, wannabe oh boy Marcus, for that information. And
Great
it
job as
does
always.
go to show how video game culture is taking over the box office. That
Yeah.
between the first Spider-Man animated movie since Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and this movie, this new Spider-Man character became so much more famous because he became a video game star, and
Mhm.
video game saved the movie star, apparently. That is what that song would be titled now if it came out today. Video game saved the movie star. And that is a factor I did not take into account. I am not a gamer.
I'm
I
not a
feel
gamer
like
either.
I feel like to some degree we may need to start becoming gamers
No, I'll
to.
pass. You know who we should get? Wanna BO intern Christopher.
Mhm.
Let's get him hooked on gaming.
Okay. Okay.
I know he's
So
got his
on
college classes and he's got all these things, but listen, we need this from him. We need him to game. We need him to game hard. We don't
yeah,
have time to game.
right.
All right. I'm
Right.
already arthritic. I can't do the game stuff. All right.
Right. Right. I
He's
was
got them
getting
good joints. He's got those young, juicy joints.
I started getting motion sickness from GoldenEye back when I was in
It's too
college.
much.
That's
It's too
that's
much.
that's around when I needed to get off of gaming. So wannabe a intern Christopher, if you're not already, you're gonna have to become a gamer. Do we
Yeah.
need him to become an esports gamer as well? Is it just
Well,
video
that's the
games?
goal. That's the goal, to be
Right,
able to generate some income, some notoriety for the podcast, wear our jersey.
right. And as more stoolies, join Wannabe O Nation, we may need our intern to get into esports and to possibly get into day trading. We may also need that out of Wannabe O intern Christopher. But I think let's
Mhm.
start with gaming so that he could help us better understand how gaming affects the box office. And we'll move to esports and day
Eh,
trading.
can I just add another little thing here from we got another, of course, just the emails flooding in about this movie.
Yes,
Wannabe boy, I'm assuming, or person, I'm gonna say person right now,
sure.
Harris, all
Wannabe
right,
O person Harris. Thank you.
said, "Listening to the latest episode, going to say Spider-Man does 120 to 125 million domestic." Okay,
Yep.
so
So he said
somebody
this on
nailed it.
Friday. He nailed
Said
it.
this on Friday. Important points.
Hmm.
Something I already covered. First movie didn't go crazy at box office, but had good streaming run. But here's another point. The songs from the first movie have been gigantic hits. Post Malone's Sunflower with the Spider-Man music video has over 2 billion views.
Wow.
So
Wow.
again, it's the confluence of video games, Spotify, videos, music, and the fact that this movie was a movie that people watched over and over at home.
Yep.
And also, people are getting bored with these live action movies. I mean, it's a breath of fresh air. Look, it's doing the multiverse stuff that everything else is doing, but it's doing it better.
Yeah.
And it really makes me worry for the Flash. Like, I'm now super worried for the Flash here because it's like that is now going to seem like old news already.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, we'll get into. We've got to do some more research on the Flash. I think something we should look into is, have there been any video games in the last few years that have featured this version of the Flash?
I don't think
Don't-
no,
I
no
want to
popular
be
ones.
want to be Owen Turn Christopher. As he gets into his gaming, I think look into that.
Mhm.
He's going to have to really just jump head first into heavy gaming, I think, immediately to catch up. Like this coming week, he should basically do nothing but game
Yeah.
after 4 p.m. He gets
He's
back from
gotta
his
drop a
classes.
few classes.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've got to see if this upcoming Flash movie has any gaming connections, if there have been any hit songs about the Flash. I don't know if Post Malone has released any Flash related singles. Maybe
Mhm.
they're saving that for the week of. But yeah, I mean, want to be a winter, and Christopher maybe does have to start doing some deep dives on the Billboard charts as well.
Well,
He's got a
so
lot of
Pat,
work coming up.
okay, so we've talked about all this. This is, I think, here, let's do real quick. I'm looking for the tab. Got so many tabs open here. This is a tab heavy show.
Well,
But
I'll drop this real quick about part of Sony's campaign for making this movie a hit. This is very interesting. A highlight, according to Deadline, of Sony's campaign was something called the Spider Society Ambassador Program,
oh,
which
I
was a
saw
program.
this.
It recruited 200 celebrities, influencers, and fans across the globe to promote this movie across their social media, to promote with Spider-Man related content. And this included
I wait,
some
I see this
influencers.
list. I saw this list, right?
Yes. And you knew I was going to go right for it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But don't. Are you talking celebrities or influencers?
I mean, it seems like it's a mix of both here. It looks like it's mostly celebrities. Do you
Okay,
not want me to
so
read the celebrities on this list? Because it's
no,
very
I want you
important.
to end with the most important one, and you
Oh,
know
okay, of
which one
course.
that is.
Okay.
Okay.
So this list, this is celebrities in the Spider Society Ambassador Program included uh Guillermo del Toro, Steph Curry, Rihanna, Beyonce, Tiffany Haddish. Good for her to be allowed to be in this ambassador program. This is a
Yeah.
big win for Tiffany Haddish.
Yes.
Priyanka and Nick Jonas, and the most important person who was promoting the Spider-Man movie, the Bad Bunny,
Yes.
the star of Bullet Train, giant
WWE superstar.
WWE star, just was incredible in a recent live premium event for
Yep.
them, and of course the most streamed musician on the planet. So you got the Bad Bunny to
Yep.
promote the Spider-Man. That's the type of thing that gets a movie to $120 million in its opening weekend. That was huge. So kudos to Sony for putting together this Spider-Man Society Ambassador program. Great move.
So what I was gonna say, where does this stack up in animated openings? So among all animated domestic openings for so it's sixth behind Incredibles 2 with
Right.
182.6, Super Mario Bros 146.3, Finding Dory 135, Frozen 2 130.2, and Toy Story 4 120.9. I mean, this is an elite company,
Yes.
right? We're seeing what, three Pixar movies. You're
Right.
never going to see any new Pixar movies in this list.
No.
Okay.
No. I mean,
These are
I
the
guess they
ones.
could do a Toy Story 5 or something. It's
Doesn't
going to
matter.
have to
It'll
be
be lower because
sequelizing.
Toy
It'll
Story
be lower.
4 was lower than. I mean, it's Toy Story 5. I don't care. It won't be as high as Toy Story 4.
Right.
It's just not
And
going to
will
be.
they even be able to get Tim Allen back into it? That's a whole other story. So yeah, Toy Story 5 is maybe DOA before it even gets into the toy factory.
So this is an elite company as a animated movie opening,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
the difference between this second movie's opening and the first movie's opening, it's a 241% raise from the 35.3 opening of Into the Spider-Verse.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Pat, I'm going to test your box office knowledge, and I know you're going to nail this.
Okay.
When you think about and it could be in any genre. It's not animated.
Okay.
A a film series, right?
Right. Right.
That the first one opened small, but the second one went nuts.
Okay. Austin
Okay.
Powers.
Absolute Austin
Yeah. This
Powers.
is an
So
Austin
Austin
Powers
Powers.
situation.
This is an Austin Powers situation.
Yeah, this is a Spy Who Shagged Me here. The Across the Spider-Verse is a Spy Who Shagged Me.
The
100%.
original Austin Powers
Yeah.
made 53 million domestic. The
Total.
second
In a
one,
total run.
yeah, total in its run. The
Right.
second one opened to 54.
Wow.
Made
Wow.
more in its opening weekend than the whole thing made the first time around. And it's similar thing. Instead of streaming, though, it was home video. Home
Right.
video is what made that second movie as big as it was.
Right.
Okay. Well, this is an Austin Powers situation. And these things
Yes.
don't come along. I mean, you can say something like John Wick. John Wick, I mean, it didn't make that huge of a jump the second it became like a bigger franchise, but that
Mhm.
was incremental. This is
Right.
a quantum leap
Yes.
above the first one, and it's the same thing with Austin Powers.
Yes. This is an Austin Powers situation. I guarantee that the term Austin Powers situation has been spoken in Sony headquarters this weekend for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then, of course, then everybody was doing the impression. We're not going to do that because we don't do impressions on this podcast. But
No.
everybody was probably
No.
like, "Do I make you horny?" You know, things like that. They might not say that
Yes.
though, because that's not appropriate for, you know. And Amy Pascal got in all that trouble with those emails. So I'm sure there was no emails about being horny in this on the Sony, you know, mainframe there.
Right, right. Though you would love to see Sony tout the success of Spider-Man Across the Universe with a "Do I make you horny?" tweet, and then it's just the number of this opening weekend, and everyone would get it.
I would
Everyone
go as a person who's risk averse.
Okay.
I would say groovy, baby. Just say
Okay.
groovy. Or we got our mojo back or something like that. You know, something that's
Yeah.
not, and I know horny is the big one with him,
It's the big one. Yeah, people love
but you
that.
might want to not play with fire because you know, the firing squads are out. They're looking for targets.
What you could do if you're Sony and you want to make the Austin Powers comparison to the Spider-Man
Uh-huh.
movie is you put out a tweet and it's a
Okay.
picture of Dr. Evil with his pinky to his mouth
Freaking
and
nailed
he's
it.
saying $1 billion. And
Yeah.
that is possibly a number that Spider-Man Across the Universe can flirt with if this run continues right now. So that
Yeah.
is the tweet. That's the tweet.
Well, I would have done $120 million, right?
Okay, got it.
Right?
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
what I would have done.
Can you get if you're Sony, can you get Mike Myers to don the Dr. Evil garb today to give us an updated photo to be used in this tweet or Instagram post or, you know, whatever it is? Can you
I
get
mean,
him to
I
do
think
that?
it'd be more effective if it was just a, you know, a screenshot from the
Okay.
web of him in his, you know, in his younger self.
Right, right. The
It would
thing
be
is,
kind of sad to see him as Dr. Evil at this point.
I feel like the Dr. Evil getup does hide the age pretty well, you know,
Yeah.
compared to him having to get into the Austin Powers getup or, of course, the Wayne getup. That shows the age. But
Yeah.
either
Yeah.
way, I think most people, you know, even people with just a passing knowledge of the box office understand that this Spider-Man sequel, this animated sequel, we've got an Austin Powers situation on our hands this weekend. And that is, you love to see that. You love to see this kind of breakout sequel, as Scott Mendelson will call it.
And let's talk demos, okay?
Oh, give it to us, demo god.
So post-track audience exits, 93 positive, 82% recommend
Wow.
among the general audiences. This was guy leaning 63%. With
Mhm.
61% between 18 and 34. That is the sweet spot. That is the sweet,
Mhm.
sweet spot.
That's the Ed demo.
Biggest and even sweeter. If you thought it couldn't get sweeter, it does. The biggest demo being 18 to 24. Oh, that is the sweetest plum.
Mhm.
40% were 18 to 24. And here's diversity demos, right? 34% Latino and Hispanic, 27% Caucasian, 22% Black, and 17% Asian. Okay.
Wow. Wow.
The Latin community is killing it right now. They are
Yes.
going to see movies and listen, they've always been a large part of movie going. Absolutely. But they are really playing their part in keeping
Mhm.
these theaters moving and grooving.
Yep. Definitely moving and grooving. Thank you, Latino and Hispanic audience, for coming out big to see this Spider-Man movie. You love to see the over-indexing there from the
Mhm.
Latino, Hispanic audience, from the Black audience, the Asian audience, everyone over-indexed, and it showed the power of this Miles Morales Spider-Man. You know, it
Yep.
brought out audiences who felt like that's my Spider-Man, which is great, which is
Yeah.
great. Going back to that age demo, that
Mhm.
40% of the ticket buyers were 18 to 24. That 18 to 24-year-old set, that is the audience that sees movies multiple times,
Mhm.
because especially they're about to go on summer break from college. And
Yep.
so that is an age group that has a lot of time on its hands. The
Mhm.
older audiences who are going to see All About My Father, they got very little time on their schedule.
Yep.
They're caring for their kids, they're caring for their elderly parents, they're caring for their, elderly spouses, who knows? That's an old audience.
Mhm.
They don't have a lot of time on their hands. They could see a movie once. An 18 to 24-year-old that's about to go on summer break, they could see this Spider-Man movie 10 times if they want. That's going to be
And
huge.
and you brought up something our previous episode when you went really low on this movie. Is this a date movie? You were like, "Will this be
Mm.
a date movie?"
And I
I
thought no.
believe it I believe it is, and I believe in more even more so now with the word of mouth where say listen, I'm gonna just be very genderedized here, okay? So you can step away if you wanna so I can step in, and I don't think I'm
Right.
stepping in anything, but just in
Right.
case. You got more to lose, so
Right. Try not to insult the Stoolies with whatever you're going to say
oh,
next.
of course not, I never would. So, this could be a case of a guy went and saw this with his buddies, gets a text from his girlfriend, "Hey, I heard this Spider-Man movie is great. Why don't you take me?" Or, "Why
Mm.
didn't you take me?" More likely, "Why didn't you take me?" But could also be, "Why don't you take me?" So this guy's like, "Great. I'll take my girl out and see this movie because I think the word of mouth is that spectacular that these people who normally wouldn't see it and it goes the other way too. There could be a girl who is super into superheroes, and the guy's like, "No, I only like online poker or whatever."
Right.
But then he hears he's playing online poker. Some guy's like, "Hey, have you seen the Spider-Man movie? I heard it's great." Says to his girlfriend, "Hey, let's go out. Let's go out and see this movie." Right?
Right. And she's like, I
Si
already suggested that a week ago, and you said you were busy with online poker. How come it
exactly.
takes your online poker buddy to recommend it before you'll go see this movie? But if they get past that argument, which
There'll always be an argument. You
but
just
if they
have to
could
get
get
past
past
it.
that one and the relationship survives, they're buying that Spider-Man Across the Universe ticket in weekend too,
Yeah.
and that's huge.
Yeah. Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, so big win for the box office, and I do think we needed it because after Fast X, after
Mhm.
Mermaid, which did good,
Did good,
but
but it
did
just
not
didn't blow the doors off like we hoped it would.
and it's not gonna be an Aladdin, it's not gonna be a movie that people see over and over again. Some people will, but it just feels like those live action I mean, that's the last one of those too. Maybe Moana, like, that is probably the last live action that'll do any sort of business, right?
Well, I mean, that's
Um
the thing. It's the last of the slam doinks for those 90s Disney movies. Now it's to make hit live action remakes. Disney's going to have to mine movies they just put out in the last 10 years. You're going to have to do live action Frozen, live action Moana,
Mhm.
and it's like our audience is nostalgic for that. I think the thing we saw with Mermaid is that Beauty and the Beast will be the high point for this series, or I guess Lion King. Those were the two high points
Mhm.
Mermaid is not going to reach that level. Beauty and the Beast remake opened to like 175, made over $1 billion. Lion King made over $1 billion. Mermaid just isn't going to do that. So you're right. Mermaid is doing well. It just didn't blow the doors off the theaters the way Spider-Man finally did. We finally had an opening weekend this summer that has officially blown the doors off of these movie
A
theaters.
and we buried the lead. It's the biggest opening of the summer so far.
Right, because we're not obviously Mario was not a summer movie, it was a spring movie. So this is
Yes,
the
and we
biggest movie of the
yeah.
summer. And you know, it's going to be interesting to see if anything opens bigger because you look ahead, it's like Flash has a chance. We got to get into we got to have wannabe O intern Christopher give us some info on whether Flash has been a video game movie, blah, blah, blah. Flash could do it. I think Dead Reckoning Part 2 possibly, but I don't think so.
Yeah, it
You
has
know,
a
there's
possibility to do it.
there's not a lot, there's some big hit movies coming out this summer, but nothing that seems like it's going to make over 120 million its opening weekend. So the Spider-Man movie has a chance of being the biggest opening weekend of the summer,
Shocking,
which
and we never
shocking.
would have I mean, you definitely, but
Yeah,
even me
it's a
didn't
sea
call that.
change. It's a sea change. So,
It's an
uh,
absolute sea change.
for all the new listeners we have on this episode, they got to listen to an episode where we talked about a sea change. And so that is a great place to dive in. Dive into the
Well,
sea change at the box office.
and that's a good way to segue into this, that this is not just a podcast, it's a historical document.
Right.
We as society goes, so does the box office and vice versa, okay? And so you can chart society, you can chart how the culture is moving by what movies make the most money at the box office, right?
Yes.
So you are witnessing history, you are listening to history. And we have plenty of episodes. If you want to listen to history, listen to those, right? We did this whole thing through COVID,
Yes. Yes.
right?
We did not miss a week during the pandemic. So if you want to
So
relive 2020, which people do, why not? You can
people are
relive it through the
sick.
BO
There's
boys.
sick people out there,
Yeah.
mentally sick.
Yeah. So relive the year 2020 through the archives of the BO boys. Why not?
Mhm.
I mean, looking ahead, you look ahead at this next month. You got a Transformers movie coming out next weekend. We got The Flash coming out the weekend after that. We got No Hard Feelings, the Jennifer Lawrence movie that's going to try and bring comedy back, coming out on the 23rd. Might be a good spot for a special guest on that episode. Just throwing that out there. Who's into comedy? Who's into ribaldry? Who's into sex gags? Might make a
Mhm.
good guest spot for someone. Won't say who, but it might. Um, got a lot of interesting stuff coming up at the box office the next month, and
Absolutely.
we're going to be covering it. So, Clayton, I mean, I think that covers it for this past weekend. Is there anything else you need to say about this past weekend's box office?
No, just a little clean in house here because we did get an email from one BO boy. I'm sorry, one BO intern Christopher. We were just
Mm-hmm.
speaking of him, and he clarified the whole was this always supposed to be a two-parter situation here, which we debated at the beginning of
Mm-hmm.
last episode. So he writes, the story of Across the Spider-Verse is that at first Across the Spider-Verse was announced as a direct sequel for the Spider-Verse, but then it was announced that the movie got so big they broke it up into two movies, and the second movie is called Beyond the Spider-Verse, not Across the Spider-Verse Part 2. Okay?
Got it.
So, in other words, it's all just going to be different name movies, which they do now. They don't like to do the numbered sequels really anymore. But I am still going to refer to this as Across the Spider-Verse Part 1. So people do know it is ending on a cliffhanger. And on that, you said that was a reason why people wouldn't want to see it, okay? That it ends on a cliffhanger. Now, I'm Joe Lunchpail, so I was talking to some of my coworkers and
Okay.
who had seen this movie and loved it, said it was great. We're so excited to run up to me, a box office expert, and
Mm-hmm.
tell me that they saw it opening weekend. And I patted each one of them on the head and I asked them, were you upset that it ended a cliffhanger? And they said, a little bit, yeah, because it felt too short. This is a movie that's what, 2 hour plus?
Oh, it's almost
And
two and a half hours.
they were saying, I'd rather have just sat there for 4 hours and watched the whole thing. That's
Wow.
how amazing this movie is to people, okay?
Wow.
This is a
Wow.
legit phenomena,
Wow.
okay? And we're all witness.
Yes. Yes. We are witness to the sea change that is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. So, Clayton, I think we've done it for this episode. So, of course, listeners, old listeners and new listeners, want to be boys, want to be girls, want to be people,
People.
write to us at the boboyspodcast at gmail.com. We love getting your takes on the box office, your predictions, your insights, letting us know when other big podcasts and radio shows talk about us.
Mhm.
Thank you again, Wannabe boy Zach, for letting us know about what happened on the Kirk Minihane show. That was a great email. So email us at theboboyspodcast at gmail.com. Follow us on social media, the BO Boys Podcast, across all platforms, but I think only Twitter. Of course, that handle is run by Wannabe intern Christopher, who cuts videos for us, will soon become a gamer and
Mhm.
a day trader to help the show. Thank you, Wannabe intern Christopher. Of course, give us 5 stars on all podcast platforms, but mainly just Apple. That's the only one that matters until we get a huge Spotify deal. So give us
Mhm.
5 stars, leave a review, and tell your friends. You know, do especially if you have a very popular podcast of your own, feel
Yes.
free to talk about how great our show is and talk about how you want to be a guest on the show. We definitely appreciate that, especially if you are already a famous audio personality.
Mhm.
That's key. That's key.
Yes. Yeah.
Be a huge radio and podcast personality with a following, get that done, and then talk about how great the BO Boys is. So that's
Absolutely.
everyone's assignment for the week. And
Yes.
yeah, I think, oh, and of course, we are YouTubers. Follow our YouTube channel. Smash that like button. We're pointing down. Smash that
Y
subscribe button. Smash, smash, smash.
Yeah. Yeah, Pat conveniently forgot to upload the, episode where he made the very, very low, prediction for
Sometimes you
but I'm
don't
sure
want
that was an
video.
accident. I'm
Sometimes
sure it was
you
an accident.
sometimes you don't need video documentation of everything. But this
Sure.
episode will be up on the YouTube channel. In fact,
Okay.
you're probably watching it right now on our YouTube
Yep.
channel. And with that, Clayton, I don't think there's anything left to say.
There's nothing left to say, Pat. Oh,
No.
wait, except for until next time.
Will
Will
smell